Welcome to this episode of Why Pals Tellson Superyacht Laundry. I'm joined today by the gorgeous Bianca. You may know her because she's the owner of Studio Côte d'Azur in the south of France. Any of you yoga and Pilates bunnies out there, I know there's lots on board. You may know of her. Welcome.
Thank you.
You may notice that I've not attempted to say your surname. We just had a discussion about that previously. Just know, I just can't massacre surnames. I'm actually really shy. We were just saying I'm really shy when talking in a French accent because I've always felt like the French were just, internally they were shaking their head and rolling their eyes at me, even if they weren't. Just stop massacring my language. But how are you doing? How cold is it where you are right now? I think is
we had a little bit of snow this morning. So I'm in Sweden. My business is on the Riviera, but I live here full time with my husband and our 2 kids and our dog. So it's okay. We're in the middle of the winter now, and it's cold, but I've just been in Antibes actually, and I will say that the French Riviera feels colder than Sweden in the winter. I don't know if it's the houses or that I don't anticipate that it's meant to be cold when I'm there, but yeah, it just feels colder on the skin. Here it's warm.
The houses. Anybody who's done a winter in Palma always feels colder because none of the houses are obviously it's all just designed for heat, and they just wear extra layers, get through the winter, and then it's all hot and sunny again. I did a winter in Palma. Our boat was in the yard, and I just could not believe how cold I was all of the time. I was just freezing, but you could have, there's no radiators. So you're just using these electric heaters to heat the room. As soon as you open the door, then it's gone. And they've got those wooden shutters that have got holes in and cold.
I know exactly what you mean. I remember when I first came over to Antibes to look for work, it was April 2012. And I had shorts and Crocs to go dock walking. And I was freezing. I got there, South African. I had no money, or everything was at that time 10 to 1 or 11 to 1. Now it's almost 20 to 1 rand, or €1, 20 rand. And so I didn't have any money to buy anything more than just deal with shorts and Crocs. And that was my dock walking start. And it took me forever to find my first job. But yeah, I realized that the French Riviera is not as warm as you think it is until June, July.
Well, let's see, as you've mentioned the start, obviously from South Africa. What made, were you not loving life in South Africa? What were you doing before yachting came into your life?
Wow. Yeah, I was actually working in radio broadcasting and digital media. So I studied radio journalism and I loved it. I really, I just loved what I did. But I was at a point where I was and I hear so many yachties share this, I was working in quite a corporate job at the time, quite a bit of responsibility, just long hours, sitting at a desk, sitting in traffic. I was in a bit of a dead-end relationship. And I just thought there has to be so much more to this than this, And my best friend was yachting at the time. And of course, at that time, Facebook, just seeing all of her pictures, this is amazing. And I just popped her a message one day and I said, how do I do this? I want to do this as well. And she kind of, go and do this course. At that time, it wasn't that formal. You could just get by with an STCW and some sort of basic something. And I went over to France, just resigned, left my boyfriend, packed it all up. And
left a boyfriend? Well, that's not very common, leaving a boyfriend. But do you think it's that moment where you're kind of finished school, sitting in the corporate, you're like, is this going to be it? That moment where you're like, I'm going to do this for 30 years.
Yeah, you just
40 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, no, it was a total, I've always had a spirit of adventure in me, and I get this from my dad. My dad is, he's been traveling for years, and interested in the world and very enthusiastic about different cultures, different people. And you just get to a point where it's like, no, it can't be this. I mean, I'm in the kind of prime years of my life. This just doesn't work. And I remember writing my boyfriend at the time a letter, and it was quite philosophical,
Oh,
actually. And
letters.
I've tried
Love
to find
letters.
it. Yeah, and I was just like, listen, I love you and all, and also I cannot see myself living like this. Like if I look forward, one of my captains always said to me, he said, Bianca, if you look around you, the people that are around you, the things that you're doing, if nothing changes, you're going to be in the same position in 5 years' time. And I was like, yeah, that was a little bit my thinking. Like, am I going to be in the same position in 5, 10? I just don't want this. And then I went yachting, and I had an amazing first season working with this captain on a small boat. It was just three of us. And he has been a huge inspiration in my life, and he's one of my greatest teachers. He's just the most phenomenal man. And I was like, this yachting thing is amazing. These captains, they also, he didn't drink. He was just like a complete
Oh, that's
darling. This is
unusual.
like jewel to
Doesn't
find. And
drink.
doesn't drink. He was, worked as a like family therapist and in like
Who
healing
is
modalities.
this?
Who is this guy? I know. And so this was my first season.
Wow.
And him and his wife are still very much present in our lives. They were our witnesses at our wedding, and his wife was with us when my daughter was born at home. So I mean, we really, yeah, we've sort of really, my husband and I have really taken them into our lives, and them into theirs, and us into theirs. So of course I had this wonderful view of yachting in that first season, just like, oh, this is great. Like this yachting thing is amazing. But still, I just said, I was only going to do 1 year. And, I was planning to go back to South Africa and sort of, you know, settle down, whatever that means. And then I met my husband 2 or 3 weeks before the end of my first season.
Wow. You
And
literally had like the most romantic entrance into the yachting industry.
yeah, and it just went downhill from there. So
So
it was
like
fast honeymoon.
obviously this is a beautiful experience and you're loving it, and obviously the views and the amazing captain you must have found the only one in the industry that didn't drink at the time, let alone be a therapist. What were your initial like but can you think back to any kind of first impressions, like what resonated with you the most in that beginning year? So I suppose in a way you were thinking it was just going to be like a gap year experience type thing.
Yeah, so there were three of us on board. It was a tiny boat. I mean, I think it was like 25 meters. And the irony was it was called New Beginnings.
Oh,
I was like, yeah, how bizarre. I've always found like the names of some of the boats I've worked on have always been like kind of resonating with what happens in my life. But I was so I was deck stew on board, and I remember I just love being on deck, and I spent more time on deck than I did on the interior in my time working on board. And I just loved how physical it was. I mean, I'm a physical woman, and I've gone on to do things that are very much related with the body and movement and all of that. And I also love the idea of, just doing a wash down and seeing from the morning to the evening, like, wow, okay, this is my work. You take a step back and you look at what you've done. And I felt that was so rewarding, because in my corporate life, you're working hard, but it's like, what do you really have to show for it? And I felt in that first year just so rewarded by the work, because you were seeing new places, you were meeting interesting people. I was obviously seeing the results of my hard work, and I was like, wow, I mean, this is very exciting. So that really stuck with me. And then obviously the crew that we had, it was just perfect. The three of us got on so well, and I felt very inspired working with Christian as well, and his just philosophy of life. You know, we just sort of sit there and have our crew lunch, and we'd chat for ages and ages and ages.
It sounds really very idyllic. Like, I'm just jealous. Like, new beginnings, interesting men to chat to. Like, it's not selling it to me at all.
No, I mean, you can see why I made the decision to kind of do a
Oh yeah,
season
I
after
mean, we haven't even got to the bit where you met like your eyes met across a crowded room. You met your husband. Like, where did that happen in this dream scenario?
Well, I mean, everybody asks us, and it's always fun to say that we met at the trash, because it wasn't that romantic. But no, he was working on deck on a boat a couple of doors down, and yeah, we sort of saw each other coming in and out of port, obviously, you know, putting the fenders out and so on, and yeah, and he timed it that. He took out the trash at the same time as me. So
Oh,
we did meet at the trash. It wasn't, yeah. And
that's really cute, kind of like for a black beanbag.
but I will say to you that I met him, and us hooking up is also quite a that part we can talk about off camera. Let's put it that way. But let's add in, you know, Hob Store Drinkers Club and Absinthe Bar in one evening, and you know,
As you remember.
well, I mean, you know, and him sort of scooping me up off the passerelle because I'd gone home and fallen asleep on his on the mat outside his boat. So yeah, it was quite traumatic, actually, because, you know, my mum had always said to me, "You just never do that. A man will never, ever, ever want to marry you if you do that." You know, in South Africa,
She hadn't met a yachty at that point, you know,
no,
things like that. That's
no.
kind of romantic. Oh, she waited on the mat for me. Bless her.
I do remember thinking to myself, like, this guy's never, I remember thinking, like, he's never going to want to marry me. And yeah, next Friday, we're up for 10 years of being married. So, you know,
Wow.
breaking mom's rules there. But no,
Passerelle love. Oh,
casserole.
passerelle love.
Yeah. But I remember very soon after meeting him and us getting together, it must have been like 2 weeks afterwards, I phoned my mum and I said to her, I've met the man that's going to be the father of my children. I just had this. I never really felt inspired to get married, and neither did he. But little did he know he had a South African woman, and you know, there's only one way to keep us in Europe, and that's to marry us. So,
Yeah, the green mamba's gonna get you. You know, got to be pretty committed to make your life easier. It's so
yeah,
hard for you guys to kind of travel about, and you know, it's very,
yeah,
very, very. The stories I've heard, it's very difficult. Very
no, it
difficult.
is. And I'm actually still on a South African passport after all these years.
You not got rid of it yet.
No, and you know, yeah, I've applied for my Swedish passport now, and if I had to choose, I'm just not sure that I would. Yeah, I don't know. I don't make me choose, because I'm South African in my blood. It's yeah, really.
I suppose it is a big thing, but just for travel ease.
Travel places like the UK,
Both.
for
Keep
example.
both. It's fine. It's fine. Just keep both. Keep both.
Yeah.
So obviously you've met the man you're going to marry. It is a bit weird. I can resonate with that because I wasn't particularly maternal, and I definitely, you know, had relationships, but didn't really believe in the one kind of scenario. But when I met my husband, I can honestly say the first kiss, there was something different about it, and I don't know why, but there was something really different. And I'd kissed a few people in my time, so for it to be different is quite special, you know. Like, and it's yeah, when you know, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I knew. I mean, I definitely knew I was going to have his children. And I'd never had that feeling with anyone before. And I'm really grateful that we've had children together, because yeah, it's actually one area um, of our lives that has not really been that complicated, because, like we were saying before we started recording, that for me, I think one of the biggest challenges for yachting couples, and I see this now. I mean, I've just been staying with a friend of mine. Her husband's Argentinian. She's British, and they're in the later stages of their marriage. They're in their late 50s, 60s, early 60s, and they're still talking about where they're going to live. They're an ex-yachting couple. They're still talking about where they're going to retire and where they're going to be. And I just said to them, this seems to be a huge challenge from the very moment that you meet until even your retirement years as a yachting couple. Where are we going to live? We still talk about this, my husband and I. We moved to Sweden in 2020, end of 21, and we're very happy here. But, I think yachting really expands your worldview. And most couples who have a regular life and a regular job and marry someone from just down the road, this isn't a conversation really that's always on the table. It's like, where are we going to live? Where are we going to work?
I resonate with that loads, because we live, obviously, I moved to where my husband's from. We're in our house now and it's very lovely, but in my head we've got one more move. In his head, this is the house we're going to live in forever. And he's like, we're going to live in it forever. And I'm like, I think there's one more move. I really do feel like there's one more move, but he's just adamant. He's like, you're no way, we've spent too much money on this house. We're not going anywhere. But is that there is one more move, or is that the internal fight with the yachty? The yachty explorer, adventurer stops, but do those urges and those feelings really ever disappear? If you don't satisfy your traveling bug with holidays and stuff like that, it's just that restlessness, because you have gambled, and a lot of the gambles have really paid off, and even the hard ones, you learned something. So like I've said on other episodes, it's addictive. That's what yachting is in a lot of ways. It's the next adventure, and you just get the buzz of waking up somewhere brand new is one of the best ever. So we have to wrestle with our
wild
yes
woman selves. Wild wolves.
wild
Also when you have children, like, for example, our kids were born in France. We live in Sweden now. My husband's Swedish, and I'm South African. And I ask my kids, like, where are you guys from? And it's like, how do we answer this question? Like, where do they come from? Well, I mean, of course, they come from a beautiful place, these two little beings, but it becomes really, and we now have parents who are getting older, and family, and I'm lucky to be lucky, but I'm an only child, so I'm not separated from my siblings. But my husband was for a long period of time when so it's like, where do we belong? It's just
I think culturally, in today's society, wherever you are, there is a crisis at the moment with what is culture now, because so many people have moved around, and what kept communities and countries together is not the same anymore. What is national identity? What do you relate to? It gets tricky, and then you end up kind of like, your children might say, well, they're just children of the world, they're connected to everything. It's very difficult to kind of navigate, I think, at the moment, when people are trying to crave connection, when all of the old connections and common ground are kind of slipping away, because our lifestyles have changed also very dramatically as well. It's quite interesting to say that, because what would your children say that they were or not? Or it's just like, if you go to any country, if I had a child in France with two British parents, would they say that they were French, or would they say that they're British? They were born in France, but then
Yeah.
obviously all of their influence would be very strongly both British and French.
Mm.
Probably the worst combination of nations. Resolve within one interior. Thinking about it,
Being.
I think it's a little unfair on the children, to be honest.
Do this at home.
You're like, oh no, you probably it's the worst combination to try and reconcile historically. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. I mean, do you feel more at home where you are now than you ever have anywhere else, or are you still thinking that forever home is somewhere else? Because obviously you. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. When did you want to leave yachting? When was
Whoa.
there? When did it start to kind of like this beautiful romance? You've got your husband. I imagine you ended up working on board together.
No, we've actually, and I think that's probably why we're still together, because if we'd worked together, I'm not entirely sure we would have survived. No, but we do work together now, actually, and we I think work very well together, because we really both understand this industry in and it is such a unique industry that it does help to leave it and work somehow in it together, because there's such common ground there. But no, we never worked together on board. I had a disastrous 3 years on board. I mean, I look back, and now that I'm actually talking through it with you, I can really see what a disaster it was, having this honeymoon first season. And then my husband had just taken a job on a boat in the Caribbean, and when we met, and he said to me, just give me 1 year. Give me 1 year, and then we can just put our lives together from there. So I was okay, well, that sounds good to me. So I went and traveled South America for 3 months.
Nice.
Yeah, and just took some time off. I always worked seasonally, so I never did dual seasons. And then the first boat after the boat that my dream job, or dream year, was on the east coast of Africa, and I got on board, and I was just suddenly completely in a different space to what I'd been when I was in the Med for my first season. I just suddenly realized, okay, this is like cowboy style, and I don't want to go into too many details. I lasted on board for 3 weeks, and I just took this captain out at the knees. He was a complete, I mean, just irresponsible. There were drugs on board. It was actually, looking back, like quite a scary scenario. And we were really off the beaten track. I mean, we weren't in an easy part of the world. And he fired me, and literally I got dropped from the boat into a port in Mozambique. I will never forget this as long as I live. I didn't have any visas to be in Mozambique, because I joined the vessel in Tanzania, and I was like, and I still remember guys on these cargo ships like catcalling me as soon as the tender brought me ashore, and I'm in this port with guys catcalling me in Mozambique. I was like, this is really petrifying.
I mean, for you to say, like, because obviously, like, my idea of safety and South Africans' idea of safety, like, you guys, you know some stuff. It's not always safe wherever you go. For
Sure.
an individual like yourself to go, I was absolutely like
was-
grabbing myself like I'm not in a good space. That's dire times. Like, I don't know about what happened to you, but like I'd probably just be crying, going, "Help, I need an embassy."
Where's the embassy? Well, in that moment, and
Wow.
I I had $200 in my pocket. I found a cab. I just asked him to take me to the airport and to please speak to somebody and help get me out of this situation. I just gave him the cash. I was like, please, can you just sort this out? Because I know I don't have the visas to fly out. And the captain had also booked my flight in the wrong name. He'd misspelled my name, my flight back to South Africa. So,
Oh
I mean, I
God.
was really in a complete spin. But, that situation really taught me a lot. And suddenly my eyes were just open to like what other captains are out there. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah,
And
that's what you said. You said this dream captain, like, it's rare. I don't know where he is. I'm hoping somebody's given him an award for being so lovely. That's not, it's not common. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of lovely captains out there. But if they're bad, they generally are
really bad.
really bad.
Yeah.
Really, really
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. No, it was quite something. But
Did that put you off for yachting forever?
no, so then at that point I was like, okay, let's give this med season another whirl. And yeah, I mean, I did work with a couple of good captains in that second season. And then, the third season I came back. At that point, I'd already decided that, yachting wasn't something that saw myself doing long term. And it had never been something I saw myself doing long term. And so between my second and third season, that's when I always wanted to be a Pilates teacher. I said that from when I was 19, when I started practicing Pilates. I always said, like, I want to do this as a profession. I just love it. I love the practice. I love everything about Pilates. So I saw myself doing that, and I thought, well, let me just try and bring these skills on board. And back in that kind of era of yachting, like 2014, it wasn't as common as what it is now. And we're seeing more bigger boats wanting, stews and deckies who have dual roles, and
Yeah.
massage therapists stew and yoga
Yeah.
teachers stew and so on. So it was still very niche at that point, and I went and I just did a mat work training to learn how to teach Pilates on the mat. And then that final season, I taught Pilates mainly to my crew, but also every now and again guests would ask for it or knew that I had that skill. But that final season, I just stormed off. I mean, you asked me in the beginning, like, what made me leave yachting? I mean, I just ended up with a very drunk captain on charter, next to one of the bosses, or one of the charter guests, woman. And the engineer asking me if I could take the boat out and anchor it, because I knew how to take the boat out, asking me if I could take the boat out and anchor it, while the captain sobered up and cleaned up before he carried on going for charter. And it was also a smaller boat, 30 something meters. And I wake up in the morning with the engineer, Bianca, please, can you just, because my dream captain had taught me how to drive, and he taught me how to park. And he'd said, if something happens to me at sea, you need to be able to do these things. And he was such an amazing teacher. So, in my first season, I learned how to do these things because I needed to for safety. And so, of course, I wake up the morning of this charter. Can you take the boat out and just anchor it here? The port are telling us we need to leave because another boat's coming in. And then we'll just wait until he sobers up, and then we can carry on with the charter. And at this point, I was already just, South African said, but like gutful. I was just done. Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, how can I be working for these people? And try and find the captain. Where is he? Oh no, I don't know where he is. Oh yeah, okay. It turns out that he's in one of the guest cabins with a woman. Okay, and he's
Oh
also
my
married, and
oh my
yeah, and so this kind of stuff. I not like getting into the details. Was like this kind of nonsense, and
wow.
that day I was just like, you know what? I am not gonna get into a car with you. I'm not gonna get into an airplane with you. And there's sure as hell no reason why I'm gonna stay on this boat with you, because I do not feel safe. And it wasn't the first scenario that we'd had on board. I mean, we'd been out at sea many times with him not sober, and it was dangerous,
Yeah,
and it is dangerous.
yeah,
And the reality is there are more incidents happening in yachting now, and or at least it's coming up more, that safety is a huge thing, and we can't. Yeah, I don't mean to. I've had my time. I've been as naughty. I've done naughty things too, but there just comes a point where you're like, there's something very wrong if there's not the basic safety policies in place here.
but that's
And I
mad.
just,
The engineer waking you up. Can you just
it's just like,
take the boat out while the captain finishes off his bird in the guest cabin? Oh, then you're going to have to go down and sort the guest cabin out afterwards. Like, what
I
on
know,
what
no,
planet?
no, no. I just thought of myself. This is
No,
this is not a world I want to work in. And so I left mid charter. I just packed my bags right then and there. I stripped my bed. I put
nice.
my
You stripped your bed. That's considerate. I
I
like
know. I was
that.
like, I'm not going to leave the chef to do this. I mean, there's no stewardess now. So, and it was also, of course, everybody tried to make me feel very bad about that, leaving mid charter and leaving the guests and all the crew without any support. But I was like, I just have to be clear about this. I don't stand for this. And that was the last boat I worked on. And so yeah, when I look back on yachting, it was an amazing journey, and I've learned so much, and I really love the industry, but I was not going to tolerate that. Yeah.
I mean, we've all worked on boats that are a bit loose, but generally, like my experience of loose boats is when there's no guests on, there's no responsibility, we're not going anywhere, everybody goes a bit wild, kind of like, yeah, right, okay, but not when you've got like when you're on a boat and people are being wild with around guests and stuff like that. Like it's not possible to pick up the slack, so the whole situation is just imploding. So, but I do like the fact you stripped your bed before. It's like,
I
oh, I'm not going to
until
leave you completely in the shit. I've just stripped the bed for you to make it a little bit easier. Now I'm going. See ya.
good luck.
Good luck. I wish you all the best. Laundry's ready to be done, whoever takes over. That's
Yeah,
for
well,
sure.
I mean, I had the guys from the port. It was funny because they were waiting for me, of course, because this other boat was needing to come in. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I mean, imagine me at the helm just taking her out until we can anchor out. It's like, this would be ridiculous. So no, I had the guys from the port waiting to take me to the train station. And they were in stitches. They were just like, you're hilarious, because I just couldn't have any of it. And yeah, and I just jumped on the train, and actually first stop, I stopped over at my wonderful captain for my first summer, and they were doing a wash down, and it was wash down Wednesday, I still remember. And I just said, I just need to debrief here. I've just left the biggest storm.
That's quite a tale, I have to say. Like it is, that's quite a tale. But on a serious note, you talk about we laugh about these stories, but obviously when you're in it and you're experiencing it, and women, that wasn't the first instance. So you've stayed, like all of us do on board. The situation's getting out of control, but you try to stick at it.
Yeah.
How much damage is done to you with that, with that sticking around? I think what I hope is changing with the industry is that women are feeling a lot stronger to do what you did in the end, to get off and go, no.
Mhm.
Because how many have just stuck it out? and then not really understanding how much damage they're doing to themselves, the trauma that they'll be absorbing, just
And also
feeling like they can't get off, captain's got my passport kind of scenario now, all of those kind of things.
yeah.
It just makes me wonder how many girls, how many women, because I've spoken to quite loads now. We've all got a tale of, maybe those moments where we should have got off loads earlier. Loads earlier.
Well, I mean, it's like on one side of the coin, it's what happens for women when they stay. But I'm a woman who, my first captain's always said this about me. He said, Bianca, you're a woman who can smell, hear, feel, see bullshit from a mile away.
Yeah.
And I have a very low tolerance of bullshit. It's my nature. I'm one of these people who, like, we got a cracking tip from a guest who had young girls on board. And that tip I just donated straight away to a charity in South Africa that works with abused women. I can't, like, I have a very strong moral compass, and just going back to, like, yeah, some women stay, but the women who choose to leave, like me, I mean, this captain went on to win an award, a best captain award.
Oh my God.
And so, I look from the outside and I think, what is, and yachting is is there such words like nepotistic? But, like,
Yep.
it's a brotherhood. It's who knows who. It's who is connected with who. It's who, and so as a woman who takes a stand and says, actually, this guy's a complete loser. I can't, like, that organization that awarded him this best captain award, I can't take them seriously, because I'm like, it's all a buddy system. And I felt, and even sharing this story with you, like, a huge amount of shame and also quietness at, like, I shouldn't be speaking out about this because, maybe it was once off, and, I've also messed up once or twice. I've also had a few drinks, like, maybe it's me, like, that narrative, that happened more than 10 years ago. And I still, I'm grateful, Cherise, that you've given me a space, and, to put that story out there. Who knows how it will come back, but I just think we have to add that voice and kind of really pop that bubble of shame, because for the women who do choose to leave, especially women who want to stay in the industry. I mean, I didn't want to stay in the industry. It didn't matter to me, my reputation in yachting.
Yeah.
But, what happens to those women who go to the crew agent afterwards and say, I'm looking for a job. Oh, but I left because I stormed out mid-charter. I mean, that doesn't look great in your CV, does it? And
no, it doesn't look great on your CV. And how it's reacted to, like, my first boat, I stood my ground. I kicked off. I got fired because I stood my ground. And basically all I wanted was nice food. That's all I wanted.
hey,
But, I did, I was tired. I reacted, and apparently that's enough. But then, yeah, you have to go to, and I don't know whether that's what one of the reasons why with Yacht Pearls of Wisdom, they go for younger females also, because they're less likely, if you're a woman of a certain age. So I was, nearly 30 at the time, going into my 30s. My life experience, I wouldn't tolerate such, like that kind of behavior. So if you are always hiring 22, 23, 24, 25, they haven't got the life experience to go, you know what, this is, don't get me wrong, there are definitely some, but they don't have that, I'm not, this is not right, this is not.
And you're just so vulnerable. I mean, like, take, for example, what happened when I left. I stormed off. I had this nice, powerful reaction, and I stormed off. And then I was like, right, now I'm a South African. I'm living ashore, essentially. I don't have another job lined up. Visas, you're in a foreign country. If I got hit by a bus or needed to be hospitalized in that moment, or, I mean, it's just, I wasn't, the contracts, you just are more vulnerable. And I think the industry has really improved a lot in the last 10 years, sure, the last 5 years, in protecting crew, and it needs to carry on. But, I think especially for women, it's not easy to make nice, strong moral decisions all the time when you're
No,
working on board.
no. I mean, and we've talked about it. I've talked about it before. Compromising your moral compass at the time, doesn't seem like a big thing, but it will haunt you. It
Yeah.
will haunt you for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. And you could say that that's like a trauma or whatever, but like it's something that will stay with you. And I would strongly advise to avoid at all costs whenever you can. There is definitely, it's worth being proud of your reactions, like basically not taking the boat out, Nanka. And you can walk away and you see that situation completely differently. But it's hopefully women's experiences are changing. The conversation's changed massively since I started. It's changed, so it's all good. So I imagine during all of this drama, you're still talking to the love of your life, who's cruising around the Caribbean enjoying himself. You're
Thinking
like,
like, oh my, this
darling, I
lady.
may have lost my job.
Yeah. Oh. My husband and I were so we're so different, and it's actually so grounding. I mean, I really do need him in my life, if I put it this way. He's very pragmatic. He's very grounded. He's not emotional about these things, and I must say it really helped me through those early times where it was very chaotic. And of course, at that point, I'd moved ashore, and I just decided pretty much within a day or two of touching down, like, I want to pursue Pilates, and I want to go further with this. This is ultimately what I always wanted to do, and now's the opportunity to do it. So, and then I started with some more intensive training and all of that. But of course, then it became more challenging with visas and so on. So so we very quickly organized to get married, which was fabulous. Yeah, so we got married on Valentine's Day in 2015, really romantic. And so that gave me the opportunity to kind of transition and move ashore. And I always said to my husband that I wanted to work in a profession where I could do what I was going to do anywhere in the world, because I just knew that him staying in yachting would mean that our base would probably change, and I would need to have my skills on my back and be able to be empowered from that point of view. So 2015, I set up my business, my first business, which was called Crew Pilates, and set that up, and then that's what I've been doing ever since.
That's quite incredible. But obviously, as it's been said many times, yachting does provide that perfect springboard into maybe chasing your dreams. It really can. Strips away everything else. So if there is a clear vision, you can pull it into reality. Generally, it is very unique.
It's, for me, like, it wasn't a financial springboard. When I was working seasonally, and of course when money flowed in, it was great, but I didn't have much in terms of savings. I hadn't really been smart financially when I was working on board. And so the springboard that yachting gave me was a bit different. It was actually more a view into luxury hospitality, which, when I put aside all the kind of nonsense and noise of yachting and my experiences working with some really interesting captains, let's put it that way, but I actually have a real heart for the luxury side of it, and the hospitality side and service. Like, I love that. I love spoiling people. I love taking care. I love, and being South African, I just hadn't had a window into that world. And so that's really the springboard that it gave me. And when I opened my first studio in Antibes, I had a few guests who were like, oh, we want to try Pilates. Like this was, a guest that I'd worked with before. And so I would start to work with some, some guests and some crew. And, now things have really evolved, and I've got the Studio Côte d'Azur, and it's a beautiful space, and I've got a wonderful team there. And now we're pretty much only working in the high-end hospitality space, especially in the summer. So we are working with very high-end villas. We've got a number of prestigious families on our client database, client lists, and we are working with the same guests that are chartering and own yachts. They're coming to the studio to do Pilates, and that philosophy, that love, that passion for hospitality that I learned in yachting and learned that I loved when I was on board, is something that I've brought into my business, and our clients notice it. It's what makes our studio really stand out. So that's this kind of springboard that I got in yachting.
It's quite incredible. It does look lush. I have to confess that I've never tried Pilates. I was went down the yoga path, but it's always been really interesting. There's not actually anywhere to do Pilates near me, too far away. But I will give it a go one day. I think one day. I mean, your studio does look beautiful, but how are you juggling? You don't live in France anymore. So your business is in France and you're in Sweden. Like, how's that working out?
There's a lot of gray in here. So, I mean, one thing I can say is that, it's all about the people. It's all about the people that I have in place. So I have a wonderful team and a loyal team, and I just wouldn't be able to do it without them. So I've really structured things as best as I can, and I'm trying to get better at systemizing it so that, I'm less and less operational, and, I can work on bringing more business in for us, and, and put the right people in place to help me with, all the things that just chew up your time, social media, administration. My husband and I own the property where we have our studio, and, so it's also having a property in another country and all of that. So it's a real logistical nightmare. And I'm, I work way too hard. That's for sure. I'm a very hard worker. I love what I do. It doesn't feel like work. So I really have to be disciplined about giving my family also the space and creating that life of balance. But yeah, I go back now maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I was just back now for 2 weeks. I'll be back again in June, and yeah, my team just they deal with the summer without me, but I'm on call here, and yeah, just trying to juggle it. But it is definitely harder work than it looks. I have said this, that in my next life I'm coming back as a client in my studio. I'm not coming back as the one who owns the thing.
No. Who wants to go into business?
Yeah.
Only loons, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
So before we finish off, just got 3 last questions. What's Bianca doing in 5 years? Like, what's going on for you? It's sort of like ask the universe type scenario. Well, what would you like? What do you see?
I get emotional thinking about this, but I do think I've come into my life to teach. I love teaching, and I also have this belief that when you love teaching, you're also a student. You're somebody who is an eternal student of life, and so I have come to, in my years of teaching, really see the human body in a very special way. And I'm specializing my own teaching now in women's health and working with women's health. So my clients now are only women. And I just love working with women. I love teaching women. I love learning from women about the journey, you know, and the journey to health. And I don't mean this in a cheesy way of like, you know, eat well, sleep enough. But, you know, I just come to see this huge link between the mind and the body for women, and also what makes us sick, what makes us heal. And so when I see my journey in 5 years, I'm hoping that administratively and the kind of dry workload that I have with my studio has diminished, and that I'm teaching and teaching my work more than what I have the space to do now. Yeah.
I don't doubt that you'll get there. I don't doubt. If you could give 3 bits of advice to a woman on board right now, what would your pearls of wisdom be?
Oh, wow. One, your health always comes first. Like, always put your health first, your mental health, your physical health. I've been working quite closely now with yacht crew who are interested to study Pilates, and I've just been dropped a little bit back into the world of yachting and meeting younger women in the industry and hearing about some of the boats that they're working on and the scenarios they're in. And women are compromising their health on a big level, their menstrual health, their mental health. And it's actually a lesson that I only learned after leaving yachting. But, you know, we're women who love serving. We love pleasing. We love other people having a good time, a good holiday, a good guest trip, a good lunch, or whatever we're doing. And we pour so much energy of ourselves into our work, just by nature of being yachties and being who, yeah. And I think just take it back to your own health. Am I feeling well? Is this boat supportive of my physical health, my mental health? If the answer is no, it's not the right place to be, no matter how much you're earning.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second pearl is to invest in yourself. You know, I have always taken of what I have and reinvested it in myself. If that's in therapy, if that's in coaching, if that's in courses, or, you know, just find things that you can invest in yourself, and you will have those skills with you your whole life. No one can ever take them away from you. And yeah, maybe the third one is tell them to fuck off when you when the time is right. Don't drive the boat out.
No, time to do one. Do one.
And just leave. Yeah.
Okay. I like the last one. That's pretty good. I just don't be afraid to say, yeah, 100%. To finish up, then, do you have? Although you did tell quite a crazy story within the podcast, do you have any crazy story where? When I say crazy story, we've had a bit of a mix. So we have had crazy stories where people have, you know, funny, not funny, scary, but one story that kind of just sits with you, and it just really describes how bonkers it all is.
Oh
What
my God.
brings to mind?
Yeah, of course, I've got a list here, and I know what's at the top of my list, but yeah, because of the nature of who and how it happened. Yeah, I can't share it, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say.
Well, what we might do is we might get you to write it down, and we'll maybe get do it anonymously at a later date.
Anonymous.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I have to say you have given us a crazy story in the middle of this podcast.
yeah.
So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. And hopefully I'll be able to see you in the south of France at some point.
Yes. When is the next Pearls of Wisdom events? I'm sad I missed you at the
Who
last one.
Who knows at this moment in time? A lot of stuff is up in the air
Yeah.
for us, but hopefully very soon. Hopefully very soon.
Yay.
And definitely when the sun comes out, because it's pretty cold and pretty grim. So at the
Mhm.
moment, so it'd be nice to go out there and get some sun. But thank you very much for coming on. Um,
Oh,
it's been an
mm,
absolute pleasure.
it's been such a joy. Yeah. Thank you so much
Um,
for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Mm.
So, listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, obviously we've got stacks of other episodes for you to enjoy also. In the bio, we will put links into what Bianca's up to, so you can see her beautiful studio. It is lovely if you're into Pilates.
Mhm.
Also, obviously, if you want any more information, we've got the Puzzle Wisdom website for you to check out. But that's about it until the next time. So take care of yourselves.